Thank you for coming. I'm Assistant Chief Michael Kemper. I'm the Commanding Officer of Patrol Borough of Brooklyn South. I'm joined by Deputy Chief Joseph Galato, the CO of Detective Borough of Brooklyn South. It's right here. Captain Eileen Downing, she's from the Force Investigation Division. And Captain Maggie Clamp, she's the Executive Officer of the 7-1 Precinct. The information I'm about to provide is preliminary at this time and subject to change as this incident just occurred a couple of hours ago. But earlier today at about 4:10 a.m., uniform officers from the 71st Precinct responded to a report of a man armed with a gun and a knife in the vicinity of 1090 Eastern Parkway. Upon arrival, officers observed a male who was armed with a knife in one hand and had his other hand in his coat pocket. Officers gave numerous verbal commands for the male to drop the knife and showed him his hands. The male ignored the officers' directives and walked eastbound along Eastern Parkway and descended into the Utica Avenue train station. The officers followed the male, who still had the knife in his hand, into the train station where they continued to give verbal commands for him to drop the knife. It was at this point that two officers each deployed their tasers, striking the male with no effect. The male then fled out of the train station and back onto the street, which was Eastern Parkway. Officers who were outside of the train station street level also gave numerous verbal commands for the male to drop the knife and show them his hands as he emerged from the train station. The male again ignored their repeated orders. It was at this time that the male began to advance towards the officers and then suddenly charged at them with the knife. Two of the officers fired several rounds at the male, striking him in the torso. The officers immediately began to render aid to the individual and requested an ambulance. EMS responded and transported the unidentified male to Kings County Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. The officers were removed to an area hospital for evaluation. The individual's knife was recovered at the scene, and we'll show a photo of the knife that was recovered. This investigation is ongoing by the Force Investigation Division, and I'll take some questions if you have any.
Chief, tell us about the extent to which officers went to avoid using lethal force. I mean, it sounds like there was a taser, there were warnings. If you can just sort of concentrate on that aspect of it for a moment.
Sure. This event didn't just occur. This event, there was time. There was start at street level, where verbal commands were given to this male to drop the knife, show your hands. This is all captured on body cam also. Repeated verbal commands, which were ignored. This led to the male walking down into the train station, Utica Avenue and Eastern Parkway, where again, repeated commands to show his hands and drop the knife were given, but ignored. It was at this point that non-lethal force was attempted. Two separate members of the department, two officers, actually one lieutenant and one police officer, each used their taser and tasered the male, trying to assist him in cooperating and dropping the knife. The taser had no effect. The male walked up the stairs, back into the street, where again he's given repeated verbal commands to drop the knife. And it was at this point that he ran, literally ran at one of the officers with the knife in his hand. And it was at that point where again you hear the officers screaming to drop the knife, and the shots were fired.
So you're saying they did everything they could to avoid using lethal force?
I'm saying they gave repeated orders and directions and pleas for him to drop the knife, and which they were all ignored.
Why did the taser not work? Did it work properly, or why did it not do it?
So the tasers were deployed, like I had made mention. Two officers deployed their tasers. We believe at this point that they did hit the male with no effect. That's something that we're going to have to learn the answer to why they were ineffective. My theory, it's just my theory, is the male was wearing a jacket, and a theory could be that the taser didn't penetrate the jacket, but a more definitive answer will be learned as this investigation moves forward.
Two questions, Chief. Was there a gun ever found?
At this point, there was no firearm. There was a knife recovered, yes.
And it looked like there were at least 15 markings of shell casings on the street. Did they fire about 15 rounds, or what, can you tell us?
So at this point, we believe 2 officers fired, a total of 10 rounds. 1 officer fired 7, 1 officer fired 3. Again, that's preliminary. The scene is still being processed by crime scene.
Okay, because the markers said up to 15, it looked like.
Those
Ye-
markers could be for things
Yeah.
other than shell casings.
Oh, okay.
They could be for debris, they could be for other physical evidence recovered, yeah.
Can you talk about the person that was shot? Can you talk about the history between them and the department?
Yeah, so the individual that was, that we're talking about has yet to be identified, so I can't. We're in the process right now of trying to identify him through fingerprints.
Is that a kitchen knife that he was holding?
That's up to your determination what type of knife it is. There's a picture of it. I don't know what you would label it.
Okay. How many inches do you have an approximate?
I would approximate 7 inches. Total in length would approximately 3-inch blade.
3-inch blade.
That's my approximate estimate.
How many officers, I just want to make sure I'm counting right, responded to the scene? So you have, was it 4 and 2 shot?
There were probably more than 4 total officers on the scene during this incident, but the total number of officers that fired their weapon was 2.
So the 2 that discharged the tasers were also the 2 that used firearms?
No, that's going to be different. So 2 officers deployed tasers, and 2 officers deployed fired their firearm.
Anything else, folks? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
How many officers total did you say?
On scene?
Yeah.
We'll learn that, as the
Like a
investigation.
dozen or